Welcome everyone to the Nerd Nook. I'm your host, Evan Teague, and with me, like always, is my partner in crime, Noah Bailey. So, today, we are going to be playing a little game to try to determine who we believe to be the best cartoon villain of all time. Now, we have a list of 36 candidates here, and the way it'll work is we'll both take turns, basically knocking one off the list until we're down to just one. We both do have two saves, so if, like, for example, he is weird and picks Megatron first, I can obviously say, no, we're not doing that. He might not make it all the way, but we're not doing that first. um, So, like I said, we have 36 candidates here. However, there were some stipulations I wanted to put onto this list just to keep it interesting. First, no Marvel or DC villains on here, because otherwise, like, at least half of this list would just be, Joker, Magneto, Green Goblin, like, the Lex Luthor. So, like, it would just be mostly DC and Marvel villains.
Absolutely.
Um, and number two, this character has to originate from the animated TV show with like kind of two exceptions. We'll get to those later. So it cannot be like a character from an animated movie or a live action movie, and then this show is a spin-off of that, and that character shows up again. However, if the character shows up first in a direct to DVD or TV movie that is specifically made to be a pilot for that show, we would count that. For example, neither of these are on this list, but just for example, um, no, you cannot. We're not going to put Gantu from the Lilo and Stitch movie on here, even though he shows up in the Lilo and Stitch show. But we theoretically could have put Hamsterville since he showed up first in the direct-to-DVD movie that was a pilot to that show. That makes sense.
I love the specifications.
But because of those rules that we decided, somehow we agreed, which is true, that General Grievous applies because he first appeared in the 2003 Clone Wars show. So he counts, but like Count Dooku would not since he first showed up in the Attack of the Clones movie. Okay. Next, only two villains per series. That is not two per franchise. So we can have villains from Avatar and Korra. There are two series, so we have four villains from that entire series, but it's or four for the entire franchise, but two per series. Um, four, no anime. We might do that later, but just keeping it American-ish cartoons. And last stipulation, these are going to be characters that we know and like. If there's one that you feel we missed, we either forgot about it or we just haven't seen that show or it's been forever and we just forgot it or didn't feel like it would be worth it to put on this list. Like, for example, we were talking, we would like to put villains from a show like Generator Rex on there, but it's just been so long, we just hadn't seen it in a while. We just didn't feel confident enough to talk about them. Okay. So, anything you want to say before we get started?
Actually,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And
Okay.
we might want to pause this for a second because I have a question that I just thought
Yeah.
about while we were doing this.
Yeah, go for it.
Does Invincible count? Because if it does, we might need to change some things.
that was that's an adaptation directly of a comic, and I like
Okay.
base. I don't. Yeah, I don't think Omni Man should be on this list. For yeah, I don't. I thought about
We're
that, but
already too far in.
yeah, we're only too far in. Like, for example,
Okay.
to go on the stipulations, Shredder technically started out very briefly before the TMNT show in the 80s started. There was a comic, but I feel like the Shredder that we're going to be talking about is the one from the show. Is the one that has been in the show since, not the one from the comics. It's kind of same with Thrawn. Like it's a character that I think showed up first in a book, but we're talking about the one from Rebels. Whereas Omni Man or whatever villain, they're pretty much identical in how they are adapted from the comic.
Fair
That makes
enough.
sense.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Mind if I start us off?
please do.
Okay. So my first pick is kind of a joke answer I put on here just so we can kind of get the ball rolling. My first pick is Marvin the Martian. I love Looney Tunes. I love Marvin the Martian. I love the his antagonistic nature with Duck Dodgers. Whenever he does show up in other stuff, I love the character, but uh, I don't think he like deserved to make it to the top 10 or anything. But he's still was a very very delightful character that I just wanted to shout out here real quick.
No, totally fair. And like it's definitely iconic in terms of like, I mean, it's a Looney Tune. It's more, so it's extreme, Marvin's extremely famous, I've got my laser. Like, just for,
Uh-huh.
but always like, definitely a villain, but also very much in a comedic sense because Looney Tunes, it's a fun
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, I think it's a great. I think it's a great to be a part of it because I feel like you can't really talk about cartoons if you don't talk about Looney Tunes, and if we're talking about
Mm,
cartoon villains, yeah, it makes sense.
absolutely. Okay, so that's first.
Cool. Strike. All right,
Your
my
turn.
turn, and I am going to go. My pick. My pick is going to be Hacker from Cyber Chase. Now,
Okay.
I love. Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Cyber Chase. I know you do too, but at the same time, I mean, come on, like, I mean, he's not really. He,
I
he's kind of. I mean,
I love his presence. I love his voice. Christopher Lloyd did a fantastic job
yes,
with that character. Um,
yes,
like he's I love like obviously it's a show on PBS Kids. Like
yeah.
it's gonna be tame, but like I don't know, I felt like they still gave him a more like he can basically fit into pretty much any other regular cartoon and feel pretty normal for a character like him to be there, and I think they pulled him off
Hmm.
very well.
No, I agree, and it definitely for what the show is, because again, it's a show about math. It's for education kids for those who don't know, but like
Mm.
it's a very same show. But he's a very he very much walks the line between very cartoonic, mustache twirling villain, but also occasionally there are some there are can be some serious stakes, and like it's
Yeah.
pretty it can be pretty serious sometimes. He does a good job of being intimidating at times and being a good villain. I also
Mm.
think his comedy is very funny, especially with Buzz and
Yes.
Delete being just hilariously incompetent
Um,
goons. But
I love the running gag that his favorite color is puce.
it's just such a it's so no, I just think it's so funny because like it like lives in nowhere like or like lives in where's it no where's he live it's not nowhere it's
He has like a big starship that he flies around, which is very cool.
yeah it's like a starship. It's like he's got this whole like he has an aesthetic that works for him and kind of like
Mm.
a classic but still not too over the top cartoony but pretty over the top cartoony way. He's very it's just it's a very fun design. It's definitely one of the first villains as a kid. I was like, that's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good,
Yeah,
but well,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Sticking with that column, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and strike the Huntsman from American Dragon.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good villain. He's one of those villains that you like when he shows up because a big fight's gonna happen. But like, I feel like I feel like that's a show that has some pretty solid villains, but it's not even a show like Ben 10 where I feel the villains kind of drive the show like as much as they're well. Let me back up. Like like with Ben 10, I feel like in Ben 10 the villains just are so good that you almost look more forward to the villains doing stuff than the main characters.
Mm.
That's not the villains of American Dragon aren't as strong as the others on this list. Um, and you almost kind of like the husband showing up more so because you know that. Why am I blanking on her name? Oh no. The girl. Uh, oh dear. I'm losing it right
I'm
now.
be honest, I can't help you with this one. I don't know.
Have you ever seen Jake Long?
I have seen some of it. I have not
Oh,
seen nearly enough to remember anyone's character's name other than
oh, okay,
Jake's.
okay. Well, the girl that Jake likes, who is a part of the Huntsman clan, you
Mm.
almost kind of like him showing up because you know that her story is going to develop more so. Um, but regardless, like still a good villain, but not as good as the rest of them on this list.
Kind of like a Karai Ninja Turtles kind of like thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, kind of has that same energy. I remember that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough.
Cannot
All right.
remember her name, but whatever.
All right. It'll randomly come back to you when we got like four to go, and you'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah," that's what always goes. Okay, my next pick, I am going to pick Mandark. And the reason I pick Mandark is
Mm,
because even though he's definitely framed as an antagonist, I don't really see Mandark as a villain. I kind of see him more of a rival to Dexter. And
yeah.
the reason that for me that doesn't make him necessarily a villain, because it's like, everybody wants to be number one. I get it. He kind of feels more like a Kaiba to his Yugi more than like a Pegasus or something. Like he's not really a villain. He's kind of just also trying to be great, which
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna feel is opposition to you, but that doesn't make it. I feel like he might be. Dexter sees him as a bad guy, but I don't think he's a bad in general. He's a
Right.
little annoying. I mean, so is
He never
Dexter.
wants to
So who's
like take
really
over the world.
right? Right. He's out here just trying to be a genius, just like Dexter. So really, they're more. I don't know. I'm surprised they're not really friends more than anything. But
Right.
no. And also, at the same time, while he is a genius, he's also, he's, I don't know. It's what I say because Dexter's one of those shows where they're also like they are genius kids and they make crazy stuff, but at the same time, you're also like, I don't know. He doesn't feel very I guess threatening in one aspect. He doesn't seem like he has malicious intentions, but I guess if he wanted to, he could be. But the
Right.
potential to be a villain doesn't make you a villain. So at that point, I don't
Mm.
really see the threat. But I do love his character though. I think it's really funny. Like Dee Dee, and he's like obsessed, of course, because Dexter just can't deal with his sister, and of course Amanda thinks she's the greatest thing ever, which is
Uh,
just of course he does.
yeah, and his laugh, iconic, obviously.
Yes. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh
So good.
my gosh, so funny. It's one of those things where you just know they told the guy like, all right, do the worst, most obnoxious laugh you could possibly think of, and he was like, how's this? And they were like, yes, do that
Yes,
more.
exactly that.
That's hilarious. That show's amazingly funny too.
The
All
girl from
right.
Jake Long, her name was Rose, of course.
Yeah.
Just remembered it
Classic.
while you were talking. Of course, it did.
Well, hey, now you remember. Now it's not going to bother you
Yeah,
the rest of this.
yeah. This is okay. Gonna go again to a kind of easy pick. Gonna go ahead and get rid of Mumra. He's kind of in that same era of villain from the 80s. He's from uh Thundercats. Kind of like very much like a Skeletor or like a like Cobra Commander, like those kind of villains who so like they're the main antagonists of like the main group, but they're not really serious. They're just a wacky, fun, Saturday morning cartoon villain. um, who in the 2011 reboot, they like actually made him more of a threat. And I kind of wish I had seen more of that show because I really liked the art style and it only lasted one season. So, but like, I kind of wish they would have had more time to actually get it going. But from what I had seen of that show, also, I think they did Mumra pretty well there too. But especially compared to the other villains of that era, I think you can go ahead and go.
That's fair. Yeah, I honestly don't know a ton about this character. I don't know that some of like I'm very hit or miss with a lot of like older shows. Like I could tell you a lot about like Ninja Turtles and things like that, but like as far as like He-Man or stuff like that, I'm kind of like I don't really have much, and it kind of just depends on like, oh, did the like remake cartoon come out and was popular? And if it was, I probably saw it, and if it wasn't, I probably did. So it's like I've seen plenty of Transformers, I've seen plenty of Ninja Turtles, I've seen plenty of other stuff, and then it's like, oh yeah, I guess this show didn't get renewed, so I never saw it.
Right.
But it's because it's like we're not that old, like so.
Mhm.
But yeah, but no, fair point. Okay, so another character I'm going to take off who's equally hilarious as my last pick, or probably more, but I don't. So I'm picking Crocker because although yes, he did take over the world one time with magic, which was a pretty awesome how he did it too.
Yeah.
However, 99% of the time, Crocker is just a very sad man.
Yeah.
And because of that, I can't really call him a villain. I mean, and when you really think about it, at the end of the day, yes, when given the opportunity, he used magic to take over the world. But at the same time, so did a monkey. So like, I feel like most people, given that situation, would probably have done a similar thing. I don't think that makes him a villain because given that choice, I think a lot of people would make the same choice. Also, I feel like most of the time, I mean, Cracker's more a victim to me than anything because his fairies taken from him. Not even his fault, by the way. And then got his mind erased. Which I think is an entirely messed up thing in the first place. They had to why I don't understand the point of giving kids fairy godparents, but then erasing their memories of them. Because I don't get the point of that. I feel like that kind of defeats the point of having them in the first place. What's the point of getting happiness as a child if you're literally taken from you? But that's an entirely different conversation for just the concept. Because of course the rules aren't perfect. The fairies don't actually know everything. They just think they do. But it's one of those things too. And Crocker, he's not really evil. Yes, he's like a messed up teacher, but I mean, that doesn't make you a villain. I mean, there's plenty of teachers that just want their kids to fail, even at any college ever. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like teachers brag about that all the time. He likes giving Fs. It is what it is. But yeah, he's not evil. I mean, he's an old man, lives with his mom, has crazy like anatomy with his ear down to his neck somehow. But it's just one of those things where you're not really. I mean, yes, given the opportunity, you became evil, but with the opportunity of the magic of the universe put in your hand, who wouldn't? Not that I'm saying you should, but like I feel like a lot of people would and would be way worse than he was, by the way. So, it is what it is. So I personally don't see him that much as a villain as much as he wants to, A, get vindication for what he believes to be right, which is actually true. Everyone just thinks he's crazy. And two, also, like, just because there's a difference between not liking someone because they might expose you and that person actually being evil. And that's why I don't think Crocker's really that much of it. This is just becoming me not arguing people aren't really villains, but I don't think Crocker's that much of a villain personally, except that one time when he definitely was, but at the same time, who still was a monkey, so
Yeah, still a great character, but doesn't
absolutely
feel in the same way even like Vicky is on this other people.
Right, and that's kind of my point. Like Vicky's actually evil. Like Vicky just likes bringing misery to children, which like yes, you could argue Crocker does too with his kids, but he's also a teacher. And like I mean, I know other teachers that do that in real life, so it is what it is. But Vicky actively almost kills Timmy on a regular basis, so
Mhm.
there's that too.
Yeah. I think next I'm gonna go ahead and take out Draken from Kim Possible.
Okay. Okay.
I really like Draken. I think the like I really adore the concept of the like super smart but also very bumbling idiot villain who's
Yes.
carried by his sidekick is a very funny trope, and
Yes.
I think he
It
does it
is.
very well. Which is why I'm keeping her on Shigo, because I think like she of the two, like she is the real mastermind. You know?
Oh, absolutely. No, Draken's amazing. He's like, I mean, because again, he's one of those characters who definitely has great potential, but he's like bad at the. He's like, he's got the genius, but he's bad at the evil part, which is really
Yeah.
funny because usually the genius is the hard part.
Uh,
But yeah, like he's able to, and again, he occasionally has some good ones. I mean,
yeah.
in the one of the movies, he actually pulls off a great plan. Actually, watching the whole movie, it's actually amazing how it worked together. But it's also one of those things where, like, 9 times out of 10, he's causing his own problems, or he's getting in his own way, or his ignorance, or his ego, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
is causing his own problem, where a literal high schooler will just jump and kick him in the face, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Granted, Impossible like that, but still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really good character. I like him as a main antagonist for the show, but yeah.
Just really funny.
Yes.
Oh man. I feel like because I see these characters very similar, I kind of want to go for Doof also, even though
Yeah.
I love Doof to death, and he is hilarious. Like, probably one of the funniest characters on here, period. But
Mhm.
again, he's got the genius part, does not really have the evil.
No.
And unfortunately, he does not have a Shigo, so usually all his stuff kind of just
His
doesn't really
daughter
get
could
stopped for us,
be, but she's not. Doesn't really want to. You know.
which I think is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny how
Also,
like the daughter kind of like what's well. I'm so bad with names
Vanessa.
today. Vanessa. Yeah. Yeah. Like the first time she's introduced, she kind of is that kind of like sidekick or
Mm-hmm.
like henchman type character, and then the second time she's actually decided to characterize her to not do that anymore. So which I like.
I agree. They definitely. I like how they kind of gave her the vibe of, like, she's 16. She's kind of like, I don't really care. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, but no, I love how Doof is like just. I also love that they gave him the most epic evil backstory ever, and he's just not evil anyway. For the most part, like his backstory makes him feel like he needs to be evil, and yet like he's just not that great at it
Yeah.
because it's whatever.
And I love how in the movie when he like his alternate Doofus Birds his backstory is that someone stole his train and that made him want to take him.
No, no, it's so fun. He don't even stole it. He just lost it. Like, it was just like, he's just like a kid. He just lost his train. He's like, yes, I lost my. He's like, I had lost my choo choo, and then one day I lost it. He's like, that's it. Like, that's your
Parents
back.
would show up
He's
for
like,
my own birthday. Like,
no, literally. He's like, I was raised by ocelots. My parents would show up. I mean, I was like, what? And it's just like, it's so funny because it's literally just like, and like he's perfectly successful as evil, but then like as soon as he does like a good thing, he's like amazing at it, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
perfect, cool, way to go, dude. But like, no, I love it to death. It's just like he's trying to be evil, and like that's great, buddy. But also like it's okay, like he's absolutely probably my favorite character in the entire show, but also just not as great a villain as actually a villain, more so as just great at being awesome, but not necessarily at being evil.
Yeah. Next, I'm gonna go one space up and go ahead and take out Dr. Claw.
Mm.
Like
I'll get you next
it's
time.
it's very, very, very cool how this villain is 1000% carried by the voice. Frank
Yeah.
Welker does a freaking amazing job as just doing that super menacing, just. And the fact that it's the same voice actor as Megatron, which Megatron again does have a good voice, but like it's evil in a very different way and very like
Mhm.
booming, cool way. You never see him. You never know. Like you don't even like outside of the fact that he has a claw. Like you don't really
Oh,
know anything about him. Um, Yet he's still like still able to basically carry the show. So yeah, good,
he
but
does.
and it absolutely would be a thing where if they did show him, it would be a
He
worse
would ruin it.
thing, which is where
Yes.
those
Yeah.
ridiculous movies went wrong. Which everything about them is bad, but like they actually tried to make Doctor Claw an actual character, it just didn't.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's like you miss the magic is in when it's only the voice. It works so much better because it's
Yeah,
like you can't like as long as you get the voice right, like that tells you it leaves the imagination to imagine everything else.
yeah,
And it's really good stuff. Yeah, no. But again, I think just because you never see him, he doesn't actually do anything really for the most part, except put things in motion. It's kind of like, yeah, you can only put him up so high.
right.
Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna keep sticking with the same theme I've been going with because I feel like I got to get
Mhm.
rid of the like joke villains before I get
Okay.
rid of the villains, and because of that, I'm thinking I'm gonna go with evil boy genius Jack Spicer, who is
Okay. Yep.
amazing. Like again, hilarious character. Like I one of the funniest thing. Like Talent Showdown is probably one of the most underrated cartoons of my childhood for sure because
Very
no one
good.
talks about it anymore. It's
Yeah.
not streaming anywhere. And they made that
Mhm.
really bad remake that they couldn't keep like any of the voice actors and had to change the name of all the stuff for some reason.
Uh,
But yeah, which yeah, but
yeah.
man, yeah, we don't talk about it. It's fine. But anyway, but no, Jack Spicer again has had his moments of being. And one of the things I like about the show as a whole is sometimes the bad guys do win. Like it's pretty even episode to episode. The good guys win. It's not like oh we win at the end of every episode. It's like not really. You kind of lose, but like it's one
Mhm.
of those shows where it's very episodic, but also it kind of keeps the same flow. So like we'll pick up on the next episode and like oh even though we lost that one and now he has the results of that now we can go from there. But
Yeah.
Jack does a great job. He's very big potential, makes amazing robots all the time, really smart but really funny, but also I mean not really that evil. I mean, he has evil thoughts, evil dreams in some aspects, but like he kind of, I feel like he's one of those people who wants to take over the world, thinks he wants to take over the world until you meet someone who actually does. And then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
dang.
Oh no.
Like that's pretty. He
Like
meets Wu. Like it's one of those things where like you meet Wuya and then he's like, yeah, it's fine. But then like when Wuya actually does take over, he's like, oh, this sucks. Like
yeah.
which like
Uh
which granted you can't rule the world if someone else is currently ruling it. So there's that argument too. But it's also like I don't know.
mhm.
Jack never felt like he was really going to like try to take over the world. He kind of was just like, it's my motivation to be number one or something, which, it's fine. But I mean, he's a great character. I love every
Oh
scene
yeah.
he's in is hilarious, but not one. He's a villain. He's more of an antagonist than story only, not so much of anything he's done for the most part.
Right. Yeah, I so wish I could rewatch that show. It's
Dude, it's so
nowhere. Like
it's got to
there's
be
so
some.
many
I'm
shows like
considering. I've looked online to like buy the complete series somewhere, and
mhm.
it's like I can only get individual seasons,
That's dumb.
and it's
Okay.
like, yeah, like there's no like complete collection. I don't know if there ever is going to be one. 'Cause I think the rights are like tied up in Canada or something. I don't know how it
Oh,
works, but
that wouldn't surprise me because it was like an early to mid 2000s show made on Kids WB
yeah,
and yeah. Yeah.
It's some kind of it's in cartoon limbo until further notice, which
Mm,
sucks. It's really well written and really well done,
yeah.
but
Like especially with all
I
the
don't
with
know.
like so many mergers and like changes and whatever. Like it.
Right.
Who knows who owns it, and whoever does own it probably doesn't even know they own it.
Exactly. Or they're like, oh, what's this? And then
Yeah. Can't pronounce it. Moving on. Like it's okay.
literally.
Okay. Gonna go ahead and take out the other Jake Long villain, the Dark Dragon. Um,
Mm,
very good villain. Played by Clancy Brown, always a win.
nice.
Um, uh, he's one of those. He's one of those villains where you watch the show as a kid and you remember this character showing up a lot, like throughout the entire show. But really, he's only in like 3 episodes. Like He's introduced kind of early on in season 1, and then he maybe shows up one other time, and then the third time he shows up, they kill him. He doesn't show up again until the series finale 2 seasons later, or like a season until the very end of the show, which is
Hmm.
I think pretty cool. Um, and the second time he shows up, he's way bigger and way cooler looking, so that's also a win. um, but yeah, but like I said, solid villain, but because the villains of American Dragon Jake Long aren't as like grandiose as I necessarily feel they could have been, we'll go ahead and knock him out.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's like weird because like it's kind of a mix because like you think if you're a great villain you have to be in like all of it, but at the same time it's like it's more of how not so much how often you're around, but the impact you have as a villain. So even if it's only for a short amount of time, if you have that like bone chilling aura to you, because like when I was rewatching Teen Titans, after like the first like season or two, you don't really see Slade
Yeah,
much
he
as
doesn't
you
show up at
remember.
all in season 2. I don't think he doesn't show up again until
No,
Terry comes back.
exactly. No, he's literally like it's pretty much the whole first season with the whole Robin thing, getting him to be his apprentice. Then he's kind of gone for a while, shows up with Tara, is gone again, and then you have that one episode with he's in Robin's like he's like get the dust and in Robin's brain, and then you don't see him again until the whole Trigon thing, and then that's it. And it's kind of like, wow, I thought you were in way more of the show, but then you realize maybe they just replayed those episodes a lot more. Because
Yeah.
I remember on TV, I didn't really see a lot of the later season episodes on TV. Maybe because I was just watching other stuff, but like the first season or two of Teen Titans, I remember like every episode being on Kids WB or Cartoon Network, like religion all the
Right.
time. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. But
I was tempted to put Slade on this list since he's not really Deathstroke.
yeah,
He has
but
a
I
mask
mean,
and he has the name of that guy, but he's not really the same character. But I decided just to not.
I mean, it
not
still counts as whether or not you consider it Deathstroke. It's still a DC villain because Teen Titans is 100% a DC show.
Yeah.
So it's like it's still while yes, Slade's amazing as a cartoon villain in its own individual way. It's still a DC villain in this context, but we can approach that. We probably do a list of all Marvel and DC cartoon villains
why
after
I took
this.
him off of this list because we can make at least 36 villains off of those two.
Oh, easily, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So it'll have its time for sure. Okay.
Your turn.
This is where it starts to get hard. We're kind of running out of joke characters, and now it's starting to get into what villains are actually like. Which it's like we have our tiers of like unreal, like threat to all existence, absolute menace, terrible, and then like
You're evil.
could be worse. And
Yeah.
you're evil. Like everyone here is evil now, but it's like there's still levels to this. And so this one's probably going to be a little not controversial, but like I guess maybe it might be a little early. But I think I'm going to go with Vlad from Danny Phantom because even though he's definitely he's definitely Danny's arch enemy. It's one of those things where he is evil, but he's not take over the world evil. He kind of just wants to get back at certain people, which again, given the abilities he has, I think a lot of people would do. Not saying that that's okay, but I don't think he doesn't even really want to mess with Danny until Danny tries to stop him from messing with his dad. So it's kind of like, well, now I'm on you, but originally you were just some guy. Also, the man loves football, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't know, he's very relatable. He wanted to it's just stuff like that. But it's like he's evil and he's very menacing at times. But he's done some stuff that's pretty messed up when he tried to clone Danny a couple times, which is obviously pretty evil. But it's also like you could very easily be way worse with the abilities he has, and he chooses not to be, in my opinion. And for that, I'm not saying he's not evil. I'm saying he is not as much as a scumbag as some of the other people on here who have no problem just absolutely decimating people for their own personal gain. And there's that. And again, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't know how I remember you weren't as versed in Danny Phantom.
Never seen Danny Phantom like that. Like I've seen a couple of episodes. There's one that I missed.
It's somewhere. I know it's probably on Paramount Plus, but I think it's somewhere else too.
No, I'm not getting Paramount Plus.
No, you're fine. I mean, I definitely recommend it. I think it's really good, but it's also, it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, I am gonna go ahead and get rid of Ice King. Kind of for the reasons you were saying about other I wouldn't even really consider him evil. He's just severely misunderstood. Like especially by the end, once you learn his lore,
right?
Oh my goodness! like Finn and Ice King are like almost friends by the end of Ice King is still trying to be antagonistic, but Finn doesn't really fight back by the end because he's just so sad by Ice King's existence. But in the first couple of seasons before you learn all of that, he's still a very very entertaining antagonistic character. Obviously Tom Kenny voicing him, that's a super win. I love all his penguin army. And yeah, he's a very, very, very good character. I just personally wouldn't feel great about him continuing past this point on the top tier, evildoer villain lists.
Yeah.
Great, possibly one of the best written characters on this list, but as far as best villain, it's not the same kind of villain.
That's fair. And that's definitely one of those things that as the show goes on, you realize you're not really. It's kind of almost like a Friend Zuko thing where oh, he's a bad guy, and you realize bro, you're a victim. You're really
instead of Ozai, but no, Zuko's not really a villain.
He's not really a villain. End, so. It's once you really unwrap the trauma, it's you're good, bro. You're not really a villain. And same goes for Ice King. He is not. While he is originally considered one, he is not truly a villain in any aspect, I would think. Okay. Is there anyone else who's I'm trying to think. I'm everyone else seems like they're pretty standard scumbag one way or another.
Yeah.
Everyone on here has either tried to or successfully taken over the world at least once for the most part.
There's one character on here who I adore, but I feel also kind of falls into that Jack Spicer category.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to see if you pick up.
I probably won't, but I don't know. because it's hard to tell. And I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, and some of these I genuinely don't know is also the problem too. Like some of these I don't know anything about. Like I don't know anything about. I don't even was it Hordak? I don't even know who that is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if
Like
you
I
want
don't
to go
even.
ahead and get rid of Hordak, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
I was
fine.
probably
So I
gonna
don't
go
even.
with him
Yeah,
last regardless because he's not. He's
yeah.
essentially
Who's that from?
yeah, essentially like he is basically She-Ra's Skeletor.
Yeah, I
Um,
got it.
and I'm specifically talking about the one from the Netflix. I think it's called the Princesses of Power show, which is a very very solid show. But that
Okay.
Hordak, he, like I said, he's kind of like their Skeletor, where he's like the leader of the Horde, like the villain army who's trying to take over the land that She-Ra is trying to protect, and like he I don't really remember if they like fight super often, but like he is like a physical match for her. But then you find out after at season the very end of season 4, this is the 5 season show, you find out that Hordak is actually a clone of a hive mind of other Hordaks from a different dimension who long time ago
What?
tried to like invade this planet, and he's like a remnant of that. So he like calls the rest of the Hordaks to take over to take over this reality, and they kind of almost do. So the villains of season 5 are just a giant clone army of Hordaks. It's great.
Like a so it's like a Kang situation, kind
Kinda,
of.
yeah. Yeah, and then like the
Yeah.
original Hordak who was there has a change of heart or something and decides to fight with them, but but yeah, that it's a very very solid show. I would recommend
Okay.
watching it at some point.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've never seen any of the She-Ra anything, but yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. No, put it is very Kang esque.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, oh
but
yeah, I have others of me to bite you. But yeah, okay.
mhm.
So, all right, I
yeah,
can take that. All right,
yeah.
cool.
I wouldn't personally put him above any of like the line above him.
Hmm.
They're just too classic
Hmm.
to for me to put him up there. So for
Yeah,
me, the one I was trying to allude to early was Plankton.
that's what I was thinking, but I was like,
Yeah,
maybe later. But yeah, that makes sense.
love Plankton so much, but is he a villain? He's just a business partner who
Well,
or a business rival who like maybe takes a little too far.
it's one of those things where it kind of depends, because like in some instances, yes, he's just trying to thrive, but there are many times he also just does straight up try to kill crabs, which like is
Yeah,
not great. And other people too. Sometimes I mean, literally kidnapping people to eat at your restaurant and like,
yeah. He
I
did
don't
almost take
know,
over
like
the world in the movie.
he did. I mean, yeah, he did. Yeah, I mean, he stole the crown, took over the whole world. Almost got away with it. Almost got crabs killed again.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there was a lot. There was a. Yeah, I didn't watch that SpongeBob movie again. That movie's so funny.
It's a blast.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like there are moments where they try to humanize them, but then there's sometimes you remember some of the stuff you're done. You're like, no, it's pretty messed up. I think there's also just a lot of SpongeBob episodes, so it kind of just depends on what the plot needs for that
Yeah,
episode.
that's fair.
But yeah, but I wouldn't. But he's definitely not as evil as some of the other people here would absolutely do some horrible stuff for no
Oh
reason,
yeah.
and just like yeah. So it's definitely a line of like yeah, you're a bad guy, but you're not an absolute monster. So I think
Mhm.
that's a fair choice.
Yeah. Your turn.
Okay, trying to think who else is an absolute monster, but not really. because everyone here is everyone here is deeply disturbed in one way or another,
Yeah.
but at the same time, could be worse. I think I'm gonna pick Shigo here because while Shigo's definitely, like you said, definitely more evil than Draken, she also, at the end of the day, yeah, she wants to take over the world, but she's not. She seems like she does have some morals, some standards for sure. I mean,
Mm.
there's definitely parts of her that does, like things like she likes, it's not as like she wants to destroy them. Like, yeah, she wants to take over the world in theory, but I don't think she actually really wants to in some aspects. Yeah, she did take over. Then again, she did take over the world in one of the movies, but
Well.
and again, like that, yeah, it's one of those things. If a lot of people had the abilities given to her, they probably would have done something similar.
Yeah.
But also,
It is
she used to
also.
be a superhero, so like,
Oh yeah. No, I forgot about that. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like
It is one of those things where
there's definitely been moments.
you kind of have to not take movies as not canon, but like kind of take them more so in a vacuum because like when you're making a movie like a direct to TV
Right.
movie for a show, you're gonna take one of the main villains and you know take that
That's cool.
character to
Yeah,
its logical extreme. Um, so like that's why Crocker or Vicky or whoever would take over the world in the movie that they're the villain of. Like it's just
right, right.
they're gonna go as big as the character will allow them to go.
Agree. And then when they go back to the show, they go back to just the kind of their baseline level of
Yeah.
evil per usual. Yeah.
Mm.
No, I agree. Plus, I think Shigo secretly wants to be at least semi good at some point because, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not. She's not as evil, I think, as some other people are. And definitely on this list. So I think here's a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to go ahead and get rid of Vicky.
Yeah, it's probably time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I'll let you start
Yeah.
with your pick.
I really like Vicky. Obviously, she's the reason why Timmy even has fairy godparents. Just, you just the worst human you could possibly conceive. Like,
Pretty much.
but I wouldn't
Yeah.
say she's like evil in the same way that like a Bill Cipher all these other people are. Like
Yeah,
her evilness is localized to this one child,
yeah,
or
pretty much.
children
Like,
to an extent.
yeah, the vicinity at least. Like, yeah, it's not a universal. I'm going to destroy this reality evil. Probably because she can't, but like, still, it's one of those things where like she's definitely evil and she's deeply disturbed, and there's probably no redeeming that. But at the same time, the deeper we're going, we're going to like people are trying to like literally like destroy lives in greater ways than just tormenting a child. Which, granted,
Yeah.
tormenting a child is totally evil, but like there's tormenting a child, then there's destroying the world. So yeah, but no, Vicky's definitely icky, but can't be probably not too much higher to go. Mm.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with Amon here because while I do think that he's definitely, I mean, he's pretty much he's all about down with society. He's an anarchist and things like that. The worst thing he really did, to my point, is take away bending, which is the equivalent of like destroying part of a person's like part of who they are. But at the same time, it's kind of it's almost like a politically based evil, more than an evil bait. Like, he's not just doing it for the sake of evil. He's not. While misguided, he does. It's like he's more of an extremist than an evil person. I would feel like, based on how he does things, and I feel like although how he goes about it is not the correct way, I definitely think there's a way to see it where it's not necessarily evil. It's more of it. He's over asserting his beliefs more or less. And honestly, a lot of people do agree with him. Maybe not to the extent he went to try to take away, the Avatar's bending and others. But at the same time, it's like, it's something you don't really think about with Avatar. Like, imagine being a non-bender and then you have, these people, a lot of criminals have the basically magic and just do whatever they want. Like, our story was mostly surrounded by good people with these abilities, but I mean, especially Republic City, I mean, they've got all these gang wars and things like that going on. I mean, people are just getting ransacked by people who they have no real defense against. So it kind of does make sense that, like, yes, he was just playing people for his own personal gain, but like someone with someone with the backstory he claimed to have could definitely be, a real leader and a real thing. I mean, so, for a while, I don't think he's as evil. He's not as evil as some of the other people up here, in my opinion.
Absolutely. He's also very much so carried by Steve Blum's absolutely amazing voice.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I think many different voice actors could do a great voice for the character, but I think Steve Blum's voice just lit that character up just so well. Like, it's the right level of, like, he does sound evil, but like a convincing kind of evil where if you don't think he's evil, you wouldn't, like, you would just think, oh, he sounds very commanding, that he's right,
It's like a charismatic evil kind of thing, kind of. Like, he really sounds like a political idealist if he's saying what you want to hear.
Yes, exactly. All right. Speaking of Steve Blum, I think Ghost Freak.
I think that is right. Yeah.
Yeah. Really like Ghost Freak. Another character that, kind of with the Dark Dragon, I thought was in a lot more of the show than he was. Because my roommate and I, we just finished watching through the whole show, and he's only really in his like true Ghost Freak form, he's only really a villain like 3 times. Maybe even twice. Actually, I think it's only twice, because there's one time kind of early on that Ben almost feels like he's losing control of Ghost Freak. I almost kind of feel like that aspect of the character was done more. Like, if every time he turned into Ghost Freak, he, like, something weird happened, or like Ghost Freak kind of like, went a little crazy or whatever. There was at least one time where that did happen, and then the time he got out, but then when he got out, he killed him. And then when the Frankenstein brought him back, at the end of that, he got thrown into the sun and died. So yeah, there's only really like a villain kind of 3 times, but it's a very impactful 3 times.
And it's one of those characters you don't forget, so it's kind of like he definitely leaves his mark.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a very, very incredible voice, very, very cool design.
Tricky, but still, like, Ben 10 has some great villain design. I ain't gonna lie. Like, they're just just aliens in general, not even villains. Even a lot of Ben's aliens look awesome too.
Absolutely.
Good choice. Okay. All right. So this one, I feel pretty good about. Mojo Jojo, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, again, yes, evil, but like considering the circumstances of his origin, not that excuses your actions, and also, I mean, yes, he does mess up stuff, but also, I mean, for other than the movie, his worst stuff is kind of could be not as evil as some other things on here still.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. So, I feel like it's his time. Personally, I really like the character. I think it's a very, when you think of Cartoon Network, Moto Jojo is like one of the first people I think of,
Absolutely.
because it's just iconic look with the giant hat and the cape, and I am Moto Jojo, and just very, very memorable, very like you love it. But it's also like we're going based on like just absolute, just when you think of like Mojo Jojo, I think of when I think of cartoon bad guys, but I don't think of when I think of cartoon villains, if that makes
I
sense.
see. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's a line for me between that's just a regular bad guy and that is a monster. And I feel like Mojo Jojo is not in the latter.
Yeah. Especially compared to him, who is a monster.
Bro,
Literally the
bro,
devil.
no, real. Like, I didn't realize how bad he was one of those characters that like until you really get into some of the episodes, you're like, yo, what is this? Like, this
Yeah.
is what happened to, like, it doesn't even feel like the same show. The him episodes feel like different show.
Yeah. All right.
It's like psychological. All right, moving right along.
It's, I think I think I need to go ahead and try to get rid of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Hmm. Okay, yeah.
Like, I like
I
the
mean,
character a lot.
I do.
I like his design quite a bit. Voice is great. I like just how good he is at what he does. There's something very underrated about a villain in a kids show who is that good at being evil, you know?
And like how it's also, I love the way the voice is so, he's never anything but calm the entire time. He's just always just, he's one of the most calculated villains in anything. He's just always just, this is how we do things, and then it works. And then, yeah, he's great. He's a great counter to someone like Darth Vader, who's just a very intense and like, even in a scary way, but very emotional villain.
Yeah.
And Thrawn's just the opposite. Thrawn's just very calm, very calculated. Everything he does has been weighed to the absolute, to the gram, and like he's just he's like a machine in an organism. Like he's just and that's what makes him so scary. There's no human predictable aspect to him. He's completely like, he's like a he's like a droid, but like he has the understanding and the calmness of a droid, but still the inspiration and the wisdom of like a real person. It's like the mix between a perfect clone and like a droid. Like he has like, I don't know. He makes it work.
Absolutely.
It's just really cool.
Yeah. Time to go.
Yeah. Moving right along. Okay. And we
I
are
think it's
running
officially gotten hard.
It's definitely officially gotten hard now, because now you can make an argument that pretty much everyone left is pretty much an absolute monster slash terrifying.
Uh-huh.
Oh man. Yeah, everyone here is definitely a villain, but
Yeah. They're either the worst or they're so iconic it's hard to
yeah,
put them
it's
over other
like,
people. Like Cougar
right.
Commander, he's a goofball. He's insane,
Right.
crazy, and dumb. But like,
But it's also
Cobra Commander,
like
come on.
right. It's like yes, but like come on, like we all like, oh man, like even if you don't like it's one of those things like it's one of the even if you don't really grow up with that, like you still know how iconic that is.
Yeah.
Um Although I do think he's really cool, I think maybe Zahir might be next just because I know. I mean, like, he's very cool. And I think he's very cool in a lot of ways. One, I think the fact that, like, we have pretty much never had an airbender be the bad guy in Avatar. And the fact that Zahir not only gets the powers, but is like really good at it, just off rip, is just really cool.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's just like, of course he is, and he's got this like, it's kind of like it's almost kind of like they have this like adult anti-team Avatar with all these other prodigies busting out, taking on the world. It's so cool, and it's like he does it so well. He's got a lot of great quotes. He's got this like he's got this like wisdom, but also he's like, it's like he's clearly evil, but the more you hear him talk, you start thinking maybe he's not evil. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like maybe he's got a point. Like he's like the villain
the Earth
equivalent
Queen
of like
sucked. She definitely didn't deserve to be in power, but maybe you don't kill her. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like at least not like that. I mean, that was brutal. Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe change is necessary. It's like he's like the villain embodiment of wait, let him cook. Like, he's like the more he talks, you start to think like, wait a minute, maybe he's onto something. And then he's like, okay, no, never mind. He just murdered. He just murdered the queen. Okay, we gotta put him down. But no, he does. It's like and he does. At the same time, it's like he's done a lot of good stuff, and like he definitely he seems like the kind of person who while he's taking over, he also could give back to others. He seems like the kind of person to flip democracy and repower the people. And it's also like, do we think he's the villain because we don't want things to change, or is he actually evil? And it's like he kind of skates the line more than you think. Like at the end, he's still a bad guy, but it's like, well, is he really? Is he doing the bad things for the right reason, or are we just missing something? But no, I think he's a really good villain. He's definitely my favorite Korra villain by a good margin. But oh yeah,
like at least 80% of my positive feelings towards that show are about season 3 and are about him.
yeah. No, and that's totally he's definitely just, which also is messed up because isn't that the season they like took it off like Nickelodeon, or is that the next season?
They sure did. Yeah. Because I watched, I think it was the episode that he sucked the life out of the Earth Queen. That was the first one that aired on the website with that horrible.
That's problem. that might have been on purpose because of how it happened. Because I can't put that on Nickelodeon because that's what because they showed it actually like pretty much all of it, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't like that's like that's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, I didn't even think they could do that. So I was like, oh dang, it's like that. Okay, but definitely not the best, but not the most evil as some of the other absolute bad guys.
Right. I think Father's next.
Yeah, I can see that. Like,
I absolutely adore Father. Again, his voice, amazing. Delightful Kids would kind of take it as an extension of him. Also fantastic. His design and power set, which he's really the only character. Well, it's kind of funny how like kind of inconsistent like powers are in KND because like he just shoot fire. Like that's just the thing he can.
Yeah. They never explain it, and I think it's really funny. They just and like he can do a lot of things. Like he can fly, he can shapeshift, he can he has firepower. Like he has a lot of powers. powers,
He like turns
and
into a
we
goat.
kind of just
Okay, yeah.
yeah. No, I mean he can. I mean he has a lot of powers, and like
Mhm.
we kind of and like it kind of works because in a show where kids live on the moon pretty
Mhm.
casually, it kind of makes sense that like yeah, some adults can just throw fire, but it's also like wait, he just like what I mean? It's kind of like that's insane, but like it kind of works. It just makes him feel more. I'm not sure what thing you're going for, but it works. Like
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
really scary, and he's just that's kind of all we get. Like he's just kind of terrifying, and but it's really he's got a great voice act. I love how like you can't really see it. So, he doesn't really have a face, kind of just a silhouette, but it's not like a hidden like Dr. Claw or like Ozai. It's literally he is a silhouette.
Uh,
I think that's really funny how they kind of
you
play
don't
into
know
it.
why.
Yeah, no, it's just I think it's just funny, and like he just can, and yeah, it's pretty. He's a pretty iconic villain. I think he's definitely pretty iconic for the show, and also just in general because he was really menacing. Like he did some
Oh yeah.
stuff. I know he did some messed up stuff. I mean, kidnapped kids and made them his own, brainwashed them to his own. That's some Joker stuff right there. So
Mm.
that's pretty messed up. And turn. He turned all the kids into animals one time. That was the thing.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he did some messed up stuff. Like he
Uh-huh.
was like you're like, oh yo.
Yeah.
But no, definitely a great villain, and they're great for that show, which that show has some pretty iconic villains.
Yes.
But yeah, Father was definitely the most iconic and the most feared and the most evil, I would say.
Mm. Your turn.
Okay. Okay. Everyone left is just an absolute monster.
Either the worst or I like them so much I can't justify picking them.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like you could make some arguments, but like you kind of can't. Listen, I know it's iconic, but like,
Mhm.
is it too early for Cobra Commander?
He.
No, if it is, it's okay. It's like, look, I
I mean,
understand.
I'm not gonna save him, but I don't feel great about him being that early. But
Right? But
yeah,
it's
I think
like,
it might be that time. Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of like, yeah, like, we don't really, like, there's not really any other, like, there's no fluff left, really. Like, everyone else is pretty much a monster. And it's kind of like, you
Uh,
can't really
he.
You know what I mean? You can't really make the argument that he's not. I mean, yes, he's like more iconic than a lot of these, but it's like,
Mm,
but at the end of the day, a lot of we've taken loss from a lot of other iconic characters too for not being both iconic and just absolutely the most menacing things in fiction. So,
yeah.
but yeah. Plus, I mean, I personally am not too attached to Cobra Commander, but I know how big of a character he is.
Yeah. Like he. First of all, he's voiced by the same guy that voices Starscream in the original Transformers show. Just phenomenal voice actor. Like that is pretty much the same voice both times, and it's great both times. I love Starscream. Um, and again, like I said before, he's not at all menacing. He's not even really a threat. He is the epitome of Saturday morning cartoon villains. Like
Yeah.
he yeah, he leads this army, but they're never really going to do anything. Whenever he has any kind of resistance, he immediately folds. He immediately freaks out. Like, he just always starts running. Like there is literally no reason why he has any merit to control an entire army of like basically super soldiers or whatever. But he does, and is great. He's again very funny, just very fun. very cartoony villain. Like I think they're really like the epitome of like what we're trying to get at here. But like he definitely is a villain from that time period, and obviously cartoons have evolved a lot since then. So if I can easily see someone just not being a huge fan of that entire era of cartoon and not really loving him because of that. So he's great. I love him, but you can go and take him out. It's fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Remove.
Yeah. Since we're already taking the first step there, I think I need to go ahead and get rid of Skeletor.
Yeah.
Like
I
pretty much the
mean,
exact same for the exact same like thing. Like pretty much take everything I said about Cobra Commander and put it for Skeletor. Great,
yeah,
hilarious. Not really a threat, at least in like the original show. Not really a threat at all to He-Man. Actually, his like subordinates are oftentimes more of a threat than he is. Um,
absolutely.
very fun design, very fun voice. Um, but yeah, I think it's time to start
Yeah, I mean,
chopping away at
we're getting
that
close to.
line.
Yeah, I mean, we're right outside the top 10, so it's kind of like being iconic in name only isn't enough anymore, essentially.
I
Which
guess.
is
Yeah.
like, I mean, I know it's just like it's hard to do, but I mean, this is how this goes, man. I mean, you gotta knock them down.
Okay.
But, great pick, regardless.
Remove, then we're
All right, we
in,
got
in 10 more.
okay. One more in this one. Okay. I'm gonna pick the Fire Lord because I see him kind of in the same way how Azula is, although technically the subordinate, I see her as the more superior villain, both
I
in
agree.
writing and just in general for thematically. While Ozai kind of more for most of the show, Ozai's more of a symbol of like the conflict more than a character for 90% of the show. And the only time Ozai is really a character, it's not really the bad guy way. It's more of in like the father Zuko, like a terrible father to Zuko, like a
Right.
character. It's almost kind of like he's a bad guy, but not necessarily like the main end. He almost doesn't feel like the main bad guy for most of the show, which obviously he is. He's the cause of the war, etc. But at the same time, he's more a symbol of we need to end the war. It's almost like fighting him's like a formality because we're at war, but like it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like he's just like clearly he's evil. I mean, he was on his way to do genocide, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
also like like as far as the actual show goes, I'm way more engaged, intimidated, and just taken back when Azula's on screen. Whereas Ozai, most of the time being on screen, I'm kind of just learning more about context of the story.
Right.
Because while Aang and Ozai's fight is great, it's also that's kind of the only time we really see Ozai do anything that's not like, directly plot related, as far as like sharing a story with Zuko or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I feel like that kind of takes away, and especially since he's not really a character until the third season anyway. He's kind of more an idea.
He's not really a character, and I've seen people kind of make that like make that argument against the show as a whole that Ozai isn't
Mm-hmm.
really a character. He's not like, but that's like you kind of said. That's not really the point of him. The point of him is that he represents the war as a whole. Aang needs to stop
Right.
him to stop the war. So him having a character outside of being a bad father wouldn't really help the show at all. Like it doesn't matter.
Right. And like, while it's important to have that for Zuko's character development, it's not essential to the main force of the antagonist, which I think Azula represents way more because she's on the front lines. We actually see her fighting with our main characters for 2 seasons, rather as Ozai is just kind of the figurehead for the Fire Nation, which, it's fine, but it's also it doesn't he is more a villain because of what he represents more than what he actually is. Granted, now he's done evil stuff, but Azula's done evil stuff and she was evil to your face. Like, you know what I mean? She's not all talk, she's actually doing it. And I think that kind of adds a lot to it. But I still love the idea. And I do like how the show does it with him, because I feel like that's really cool how, like, they don't see each other till the literal last episode where they, like, fight, which is, like, that makes total sense. Because, like, in real war, you don't really know anything about the other side except they want to defeat you and vice versa. So you kind of just, the first time you lay eyes on your opponent is in the heat of the moment and contact. So
yeah,
but that's why I think he's just outside the top 10.
Yeah. So let's go over the top 10 that we somehow settled on. Megatron, Shredder, him, Aku, Azula, Bill Cipher, Cad Bane, General Grievous, the Lich, and Vilgax. It's a good list.
It's a good list. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I kind of wish I had said this guy before I had said Skeletor, so that Skeletor could be the top 10, but it's whatever. I love Cad Bane. I love him to pieces. I love every single time he shows up in anything. He just has this presence to him that, like, almost no other Star Wars character outside of Darth Vader has. Just like, his voice is amazing. Like, his hat, iconic. And the fact that he is such a compelling villain, while really, like, he's just a mercenary. Yeah, he does horrible things, but he's not trying to take over the world. He's not really doing anything like he personally isn't really doing anything nefarious. He's just doing what people tell him to do. Like, it's just like he's just the guy that does it. Like, it's Sidious's plan, but I'm doing it. Like,
I mean, he's just, and he's so, like, it's so good because, like, like you said, he's just a guy, just, he's just trying to make his money. He's really, yes, clearly he's a bad person, but it's not like he's, like you said, he's not trying to take over the world. He's just trying to get paid. And that implies doing, messed up stuff, but he's like, hey, it's just business, it is what it is. But
like, he'll
he
kill
has that
senators, he'll steal some babies, whatever, but like, if, like, he has the skills, so why not use them for that?
Yeah, I mean, and he's great at it, and like you said, he's very iconic, just steals every scene he's in easily, and just also just like, I mean, he's one of those characters that when he's on screen, you buckle up because something awesome's gonna happen, and I think that's just kind of where you're, like, locked in.
Absolutely. So yeah, I love him, but
great pick.
Yeah,
that's fair. Oh my gosh, this is infinitely more difficult now. Man, this is hard. I think I have to go with General Grievous because
it's gonna be my pick too.
Yeah, it's just, he's great in that 2003 Samurai Jack style. It just worked so well for him because the animation just, he can be as fluid and as crazy as a robot with four lightsabers you would expect. He does a great job of how those scenes, like, I love the, that series and Samurai Jack are so good at making silence so loud.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many moments where General Grievous is he's preying on some Jedi and it's just silence. And it's silence for longer. And you could see the characters stressing out about there not being any noise. That you're also it's so quiet. And then he just pops off and then does something crazy really fast. And it's just, he has such a, I don't know if the word is just like a presence, but it's just done so well how he just handles this so well. And in this universe where Jedi are also shown to do some crazy stuff pretty easily, he's also able to do just insane stuff to keep up with multiple dudes of them at the same time. It's done really well. It's just really cool, but at the same time, I think part of it being how the other Clone Wars show, he is not as intimidating, and kind of every other iteration of General Grievous is not as scary for the most part, which kind of deflates this version, because the 2003 one specifically is an absolute force to be reckoned with. But no, he's pretty awesome. Obviously, very evil, very good at what he does, has a great presence. The voice is pretty great. I mean, it's pretty across the board what you want in a villain, but at the same time, so is everyone else.
Yeah.
Right, moving right along.
I think once I get rid of this next guy, a lot of other dominoes will start falling for me easier. I think I need to go ahead and get. Oh, I really like this character a lot, but I just feel like Bill Cipher needs to go.
Ooh, wow.
For me.
Okay.
I absolutely adore Bill Cipher, but I like the Lich more. I like Vilgax more, like Aku more.
Mm-hmm.
And after Bill Cipher's gone, I'll feel better about them going. But I really, really like Bill Cipher. The fact that he's a character that was teased in the intro of every single episode for a split second. If literally blink, you miss it. Every single episode, just the imagery of the eye is everywhere. Once he shows up the first time, the imagery even compounds on itself more and more. The Alex Hirsch does an amazing voice. If you didn't know that was the same guy that voiced Uncle Stan, voiced Seuss, etc., you wouldn't know that it's him. He does a great job differentiating his voice from other characters he plays. Just has a command of every single scene that he's in. Yeah, I really, really like him. Honestly, I think I liked him more when he was just a dream demon and not full on before he took on his corporeal form. I like the finale a lot, but I feel like him being the dream demon kind of, I don't know, made his presence more, or made his evilness more personable as opposed to just generic take over the world type stuff. But still, very, very good character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely nightmare fuel incarnate, bro. I really just just does an amazing job of being just incredible. So he's so casually menacing, I think is a good way of saying it. How he's just, I mean, especially with the all the abilities he has, he's so good at just being an absolute monster.
Oh yeah.
Clearly just pure evil, does not, it laughs about it, how evil he is, does crazy stuff. And it's one of those things too, because Gravity Falls is one of those shows where it just progressively you get exposed to more things as far as like just weird stuff, creepy stuff, crazy stuff. And then Bill Cipher's just like the epitome of just everything that was building up to as far as like just things going bad. Like he's just absolutely, it doesn't get much worse.
Yeah. Like one of my all-time favorite moments in any cartoon ever is Bill sitting or Dipper sitting on the windowsill, and this window has been again in almost every single episode of the show. Like the window is a triangle with a circle that like could look like Bill, and like, he's reading the journal, and like he gets to a page with the invisible ink that's like beware of Bill, don't trust Bill, whatever, and he's like oh no, and then like lightning strikes and the shadow from the window like beams onto the ground, like you see Bill's. So basically, you see a silhouette. Like that's such good imagery.
Dude, that's so crazy. That's what I'm saying. Like Gravity Falls is one of those shows where it's just like that stuff's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, really, really like his character, but I think I need to go ahead and take him out now.
I think it's time. That's fair. It's yeah. I mean, we're getting to the point where we're not gonna like any of the decisions we make. Every single character here can be argued as better than anyone else, more or less. So it's kind of like, unless we want to be here for the next 4 hours, we gotta just make some decisions.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where like anyone could really like, depending on the day, this could go either way for a lot of these.
I agree.
Oh man. I'm trying to pick who's like, I don't even know, because it's like there's like the who's just the like most terrifying versus just like the most evil versus just like, I don't know, man, stuff. All right. Even though this one's probably one of the scariest ones, how do you feel about him?
That was gonna be my next pick, unfortunately.
Yeah. Dude, listen.
Oh boy.
I did not listen. I don't know who was like, you know what this show needs? Nightmare fuel, but like, bro, this character is insane. First of all, I am just like, it's one of those characters where you're just like, huh? Like, oh man. Like, oh my God. Because it's like, you know what we need? Let's just make the devil a character, and they just kind of did.
Just the devil,
and then and there's no explaining it. Like they just kind of did, and they were just like, yeah, it's just a character. Sometimes they're not always here, but like, yeah, sometimes they are. And it's just like,
just make him a multiversal dream destroying demon who can do literally anything he wants. Like, okay, sure.
Literally, like, absolutely, just like, and I get like when you have someone as strong or someone's as strong as the Powerpuff Girls, you kind of have to like go outside the box with admirable foes. But at the same time, this was something fierce. This is like I don't even know. This is terrifying. This is crazy. Yeah, him's just one of those characters that you kind of, I don't know. It's like kind of just like you thought, like, because I first thought it was just a shapeshifter.
Right.
They're not. It is not. It is way worse than that. It is so much worse. It's like the more you watch, the more you like all the him episodes you watch, you realize like, oh no, and like it just it's like
when he decides he wants to take over the world, he takes it over easily.
Yes.
Mine now, and he just says like, oh, okay.
No, I mean it's just kind of like we're like it's one of those things where like you're living in him's world, we just didn't know it the whole time, and like him's just kind of like, yeah, you can have it back for now until I feel like taking it back, and then we kind of just went to the next episode. It's kind of just like, oh, there's no resolving that. We're all still potentially impendingly in doom. It's just not at this moment. And it's kind of just like that's terrifying. And we never really like, I don't know. I just and it's weird because like sometimes they're just around, but like
just in the background of scenes, just there.
Kind of, yeah. They're kind of just like, are you just like? I don't know, man. It's like if they were just like it's like if there was just like Batman was fighting some like it was like oh yeah there's like Riddler and oh there's Conor McGann it's like oh and there's Trigon you're like oh like, hey whoa wait no literally it's like I thought this was like street level and above this is a whole different thing like this is. Like we're fighting a bunch of Sealand, and then we got SS plus over here, just kind of also in the corner, like the whole Battle Beast thing all over again, but like somehow worse.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. It's one of those things where like I thought like I remember there's I forgot what episode it was. It was one episode where him does something insane, and like I thought it was like I thought I dreamed it, and then I saw it again as an adult, and I was like, "Oh, that was very real. That totally happened." And then they just didn't talk about it. I'm like, "Okay, well, that's I gotta watch some more. I gotta watch that again because I was like." Also, the character also looks kind of terrifying in some context. So, yeah, just. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just kind of hoping that conversation would last longer because I really don't know what I'm taking.
Yeah, that's fair.
I genuinely believe that all 6 of these people deserve to be in the top 5.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not how this works.
As much as I adore this character, I guess I guess I have to pick Vilgax. I really, really, really like Vilgax. Like there is something so satisfying about having a villain who is just a really big, really strong dude. No BS powers, no like special abilities that he has to conveniently forget in order for the hero to get a hit on. No, he's just bigger and stronger than you, and you can't do anything about it. That's Vilgax, and I love that about him. He just has this presence to him that no other villain, especially in the show, but like most other villains don't really have. An incredible voice, both of which they completely botched in Alien Force. Oh my goodness, I hate that Vilgax so much. Like I understand he's not gonna have like the mask and the whatever forever, but like he just the fact that like they changed his design so much and they changed his voice so much in Alien Force has made that character just feel so much weaker. But the Vilgax from the original Ben 10 show is a top tier villain that I really love, but I feel like the others just edge him out ever so slightly.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where like definitely super iconic, just Cartoon Network villain as a whole. Just Absolutely. Like, you knew if Bill X showed up, it was going down. He played no games at all
Mm-hmm.
at any time. Gave Ben some insane beat. Like, it was one of those things where, like, Ben was really kind of just cruising against a lot of villains, and then Bill X literally just sat him down and was like,
Yeah,
"You're not the
there
main character.
in
I
his
am."
first fight against Ben, Vilgax like orbital strikes, tackles tackles Snakefly into a skyscraper, and the building explodes. Like it takes out a whole block. It's like, where did that explosion come from? Like, that's just what he can do, apparently.
Yeah. Like, why? How is that possible? I guess you're just not evil enough. I don't know. Like, you just
Yeah, great villain, but just the others are so iconic.
really good. Like, really good. Like, no, and it's just really good too because like he's I don't know the voice. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like the voice, like the original William voice. It's like one of those where it's just like it's it's almost like, you know how it's like so evil you pay attention. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're just kind of like, because especially Ben 10. It's a great show, but it's one of those shows where like episodes can be very serious or very just, we're just doing whatever today. And it's one of those things where like it got, or like Vilgax showed up, and then from then on, it just gets kind of really serious from there. And it's kind of like, okay, there's real problems now. We're not just, we're not just messing around doing cool stuff with the Omnitrix. Like, now we got serious threats. Like, this is really happening. And, like, we're probably like, we might not win this thing. Like, this guy's actually pretty insane. So be prepared. But no, Vilgax is definitely like that. He's definitely a great villain.
Right. Top 5, we got Megatron, Shredder, Aku, Azula, and the Lich.
This is a good list.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of like, I see there's not really a right choice, but I feel like there are a few wrong choices, and based on that, I kind of just have to just shoot in the dark based on that. So it's like,
Like at this point, I'm happy with all of these being in the top 5. Like this feels like a really good top 5.
This feels really solid top 5 just because, like, yeah, every villain on here is iconic. You know exactly where, what I mean? You know everything. You like, you don't even have to explain it. You just say it. Everyone's like, yeah. um, this one's probably my favorite. I think I'm gonna say Azula.
Dang it, that was my next pick too. Why did you keep
I mean,
like, not that she doesn't deserve to be here at all, but just like as far
no,
as
but
iconic,
like that's that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's the pick you have to make at this point because it's like you kind of just have to. I mean, and the thing too is like, obviously, freaking, Greg Griffin does an amazing job with all of the lines with Azula. Like, from the jump, she has the best lines. Just an absolute, like, you just know immediately she is not to be messed with from the start. She's got great lines. All of her fight scenes, I love how her fighting is so fierce, but like calculated. Like, I like the detail where, like, up to this point, every single firebender's been fist and haymakers, and this she's got fingertip firebending, and it's also so just good. Blue because it's better than you. Because, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, it's just stuff like that that's so interesting. How she's this, she's just this very manipulative villain, like really just keeps aligned to like the psyche, manipulates, outsmarts your opponent, something that hasn't really happened to this point because I mean, not that Zuko was like or Zhao were like necessarily bad, but they both kind of felt very Saturday morning cartoonish at times.
Yeah.
And Azula at no point really had that vibe. She was just straight business from the jump, which was really
Absolutely.
good because season two is definitely where kind of the page turns for the entire show in terms of like, things have gotten more serious. And I mean, you could argue like in season, like halfway through season one, but really season two, because you get the two of the best characters in Toph and Azula in season two, and then it just kind of like the show just goes from really good to just S tier from there. And Azula's a huge part of that in terms of just being just calculating, iconic. Whenever she shows up, you're just like, oh crap. And there's the, and like, shows up, she's got her little theme with the little bells in the background. Even whether it's like a fight or just she's gonna say something mean to somebody, it's always that same level of things are about to get worse because Azula's here in some capacity. And it's the great, like, her parallels with Zuko. Like, it feels like things get worse between them as Zuko gets closer to the light, which makes sense to show her more darker side. She's absolutely does not care about anyone. Like,
Yep.
I mean, even her friends are just pawns. Like, to her, like, it's just she's an absolute villain that she does not get. She doesn't no redemption. No, oh yes, I had a bad backstory, but I also don't care and want to be evil, and like
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I'm all for it. Like, she's a great villain, and she's really well done. I mean, it's just a really well done character that really. I mean, it's one of those characters that like probably top three favorite Avatar character period. Okay? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Again, I absolutely adore this show. I
Mm,
1,000,000% adore this villain, but I like I'm between two, and I feel like one is just slightly more iconic than the other,
that's
and I feel
fair.
like I like them both about equally, and I'll prefer the one that's more iconic. I'll take out the Lich.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Hey,
it's just time. It's not. I mean, listen, it's just there's only four left, and like, yeah,
like the Lich is he's one of those characters that shows up in a show, and after that point, everything about that show is different. Like Adventure
yes,
Time was a very like the show didn't take itself seriously at all. Like Finn was a very goofy character. Every character he interacted with was just a weirdo. And then at the end of season one, the Lich shows up, and ooh boy, like again, he just has this essence to him that they just I don't know if they could have picked a better design for the character they were going for. Because like I said, almost every other character is either like super intentionally goofy or like a dessert person or like a lump of lumps, like just like just a bunch of weird shapes and just a goofy universe, and then this like decrepit skeleton demon guy who just turns everything he touches evil is just incredible. And then after they defeat him the first time, he infests the snail that has been in the background of every single episode up to that point. Like that, one of the Easter eggs of Adventure Time is somewhere in every single episode, at least up to a point I know season one and two. there's a little snail in a scene somewhere in the entire show, and then that snail is what I think accidentally brings a lich back to life. And then at the end of that episode, the lich possesses that snail. So now when the snail shows up after that point, the snail has like lich eyes. Like if so, he's still around in every single episode after that point. That's so good. Ron Perlman does a fantastic job with the Lich's voice.
Mhm.
It just has this presence to it that is just so good. And he's also one of those I absolutely adore when there's a villain who just kind of exists in the background of any given show where like some really really bad stuff is happening in a show, and then like the heroes are like maybe about to win, and then the lich just shows up and makes it worse. Like that happens at least a couple of times. It's just out of nowhere. Just the lich is a part of this now. That's bad. Oh no. And yeah, like he's a very 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 good villain, especially for the universe you know that he exists in. And I love how he basically forced the show to grow up after that point. And I think the
Yeah,
transition to that was handled very well. And it very very good villain, but just barely missed out in the top three.
yeah, and that's fair. But yeah, it's like I think I like what you said, like how he after the Lich first appears, the show is never the same.
Mm,
And I think that's really I know a lot of villains show up early on in shows, but like I think that's just one of those things that just kind of just show the testament to just like how iconic this character is. And it's like,
yeah.
man, that is insane. Which
Hmm.
I am gonna pick the other character that I was gonna pick between those two, which is Aku right here, which
Yeah,
is just like,
those were the two.
yeah, because I mean, speaking, you want to talk about iconic villains, bro?
Oh boy.
First of all, number one in terms of pettiness on any list is Aku by a mile. Like, dude,
Yeah.
this guy does not like. Aku's that guy who already beat you, but he's like, no, let's do double or nothing just because I can, and then he's gonna do it. Like oh man, this guy. I mean, like manipulates Jack and tortures him to a fault. I mean, it's like, oh man, it's just I don't know. It's just so interesting how like
Mm,
he's this all powerful, just complete human thing who's just kind of like, yeah, this samurai sucks. You know what? We're gonna make this worse for him.
uh,
Like, yeah, I
and
mean, it's just
I love how once Jack is in the future, most of the time when it cuts to Aku, even though he owns the entire universe pretty much, he's just bored all the time.
yep.
Like that feels accurate to this all-powerful being who got everything he wanted. Like the hero can't stop me. Like, what is there really to do now? I really like
Oh my god, it's so funny too. It's just like it's just funny stuff. I mean, yeah, and it's like it's just like one of those things where like he's so evil. It's just kind of like it doesn't really matter what else happens. Like it's kind of already over. In the future, and then like he'll do stuff and like, oh Jack, like pretends to be this person he falls in love with, and oh no, it was me. And it's like, bro, what? Like that's some reverse Flash level stuff, man. Like that's
right.
absolutely crazy. Like and just kind of like torments it. And again, like Jack didn't even. I mean, Jack's just trying to save the universe, and
Mm.
it's just like he's like you're like basically you're my personal project now, and it's just like wow, that is just oh man, and yeah, he just kind of take over the universe, did, and then got bored, and then he's like, how can I make this more enjoyable? And basically like gives the hero a chance just to like have something to do. But at no point do you really feel it's like even as like an audience, at no point do you really feel like he's really gonna die. You kind of just be like, oh, this will be interesting for about 20 minutes, and then we'll be like, oh, yep, everything's fine.
Mm. Yeah, great villain. Like the late Mako does a
Excellent.
fantastic job. Um, like, man, good, very good. Definitely deserves top 3 easily.
For sure.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay. So
Pressure.
you've given me the choice between Shredder and a Transformer. And I like Shredder a lot.
That's totally fair.
Like, and Shredder is one of those characters that I think very similar like to Megatron, where depending on the show he's in, I feel like he he can exist as this like very goofy, 80s Saturday morning cartoon character who's clearly just made to sell toys. Who like it was just a character that'll show up, the turtles will beat up for an episode and then move on. He can exist as that, or he can exist as the 2003 Shredder, who is a monster, or the 2012 Shredder, who is a very very intimidating force, who like actually wins most of the fights he gets into. It's like it's super commanding of every scene he's in. Or you could have the 2017 Shredder, who is huge. Like that guy is like I don't know if you've ever really watched much of Rise of the Ninja Turtles, but it's actually a very very solid show. Like it starts off kind of iffy, but then like as it gets going, it gets going very good. But the Shredder in that show is this behemoth of a dude who's just like covered in armor and blades. They can like shoot blades out, and he's great.
Oh dang.
But the character, I feel like it's still clearly Shredder, but I feel like he can perfectly be suited for any given like environment that he's in, and he's great in any context. Um, and like I feel like every design, like most of the designs are very similar. A lot of silver and purple. Again, a lot of blades, and it's a very very good adversary to the Ninja Turtles. But I like Megatron.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
Transformers
No,
was my first love. I will not betray them.
that's totally fair. No, I mean Shredder for me, especially. So I started with the 2003 Ninja Turtles as my first introduction to them, and Shredder was an absolute monster from the jump in that show. Like that's one of those where like they kind of like foreshadow it, but when he actually shows up, like he first shows up, like the turtles pretty handedly, handled themselves to that point. I mean, when I tell you they got mollywopped by, I mean, it was bad. Like, I mean, they got dismantled by the turtle. And then it's so funny because, like, as they collect themselves, they get it together, they come back, and then it's not better. It's like no, you're still not. You're still trash compared to me. Like, it does not matter. Like. It's one of those things where you rarely see that happen. It's like really interesting how you just like, oh man, like yeah, we training montage, we beat some other side. It's like when you're playing a game and you get beat by a boss, and then like you do a bunch of side quests, you level up, and you're like, oh, I'm ready, and then the boss one shots you again, and then you're just like, okay, now I need to play a different game. Like this is clearly not working. But yeah, no, he's just and he comes, and it's one of those things where his presence is always just an absolute, like, it's just a force to the point where even, like, I mean, spoilers for the show for anyone who hasn't seen that three show, but like, even when he kind of comes back in different capacities, it's like it's intimidating, and it's like, oh, this that, and then like, at one point he's an alien, which is like, okay, now it's a little
Yeah.
weird, but up until then, it was pretty awesome. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the show, it has moments, but and in the same way, and like, in the '80s cartoon, he's definitely your typical Saturday morning '80s villain, where it's just like, oh, I'll get you, he's the same, I'll get you next time, you blasted turtles, voiced by, late James Avery. But it's one of those things where it's like, up until like after that point, he's all business. And it's like that, it's in like the 2012 show, like you said, it's like that there too, where he's very intimidating, has no problem just putting the turtles down like it's nothing, which is always interesting too, because like, you gotta think from his perspective, it's 4-on-1 and he just massacres them. And it's kind of like, dang, you gotta be some type of, some type of thing to just take four, especially if they took down a whole army and then you're just like, couldn't be me. And then you just take them all out like it's nothing. But Shredder is just, I got the iconic look. I mean, it's almost kind of like a Darth Vader kind of esque to him. It's like you can just, his silhouette alone is enough to get the whole, like, everyone's attention. So definitely a great villain.
And he kind of has that like Joker feel to him, where if Shredder doesn't show up in a Ninja Turtles thing, you basically expect them at least to tease him at the end of it, which they almost always do. Like at some point he'll be in the universe. He's just a constant, which is he deservedly, like he should be there somewhere. Like even if it doesn't really make sense for him to show up necessarily, he still should, because he's the Shredder.
Right. It's so, I mean, he's so iconic. I mean, Shredder and Ninja Turtles are like, I have to go together. Like, you can't have a Ninja Turtle show without the Shredder. It just doesn't work.
Exactly. But exact same thing with Transformers and Megatron. If there's ever a Transformers thing that doesn't have Megatron, like either
you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong, or he has to show up like at the end or to be teased or something. Because, man, like I wouldn't even really consider Megatron like a great character. He's just, I personally feel like the best representation of a cartoon villain. Like, he's the leader of the enemy team who has history with like the leader of the good guy team. He has an arm cannon, so that gives some cool points. I
like how all our arguments were like other characters, like, yeah, it's like psychological. This is like, it's like, yeah, but he's got an arm cannon. And we're like, yeah, but that doesn't help. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he's just like, I would argue, if not the one of the most iconic villains in any cartoon ever. And I legitimately feel like, I feel like you'd be weird if you tried to argue that he wasn't. He's Megatron.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, even if you don't know anything about Transformers, you know Megatron's the bad one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's just like with Shredder, like the Transformers shows, usually they're almost always on the goofier side, but like, if a Transformers show wants to get more serious, Megatron, can be a very serious threat. There's a show called Transformers Animated from I think 2007, which that show is actually interesting because Megatron as a character doesn't actually like really show up until I think the finale of season 1. He exists as a head in like one of the humans, like the main scientist guy's lab, and he's like getting information from, communicating with Megatron. But as far as like Megatron, the actual character, like in full body form, doesn't show up until it's either the finale of season 1 or season 2. But when he, just like with Shredder in the O3 show, when he shows up, like he he means business. It's great.
Mhm. No, I think that's also the mark of a great film. Like they're not to be taken lightly in any capacity.
Mm. So yeah, Megatron's a winner. Okay. Anything else you want to say about any of these, iconic villains that we mentioned before we wrap up today?
It really just makes you want to go back and watch some shows. You know, you really want to go back and like, man,
Mhm.
the Lich was crazy. Let me go back, or like, oh man, let me look at some of those Gravity Fall moments, or like, just like
Mhm.
see, like, when did the Bill Cipher stuff really start popping off? Like, it's just like you really appreciate like this stuff like this really makes you appreciate because again, when it's hard to make these decisions, like, oh man, like who's out of the top 10, who's in the top 5? It's like let's, maybe we can revisit something. Maybe we watch the stuff and come back and be like, maybe this person should have been made it higher, should have made it further. But
Mhm.
they're all really good, and it's all stuff
Yeah,
we love. So it's awesome stuff.
absolutely. Okay, so yeah, let us know if you think we missed anyone super major down in the comments. Let us know if you feel like there's anyone that we did mention that should have gone a lot further. Just tell us who your favorite cartoon villain is of all time. Yeah, I'd like to hear all that down below. So with that, we will see you all next time.
Take care.